channel. Victoria here. If you're new, welcome. Today's video is going to be a makeup do's and don'ts video. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. Definitely going to be a part of my back to basics series, and like I always say, if you haven't checked out the other videos in this series, be sure to check it out. It's I think it's a really good one. But yeah, anyways, if you'd like to see what my personal don'ts and makeup do's are, please stay tuned. And if you're not subscribed already, please click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications, as well as give this video a thumbs up. So stay tuned and let's get into it. Okay, so I think I'm going to do this side as my do side, and this side is going to be the don't side. Okay, so the first do is that you've gone through your skincare regimen, you've cleansed your skin, you applied your toner, your moisturizer, and you've applied some sunscreen. Okay, so I've done all that off camera. A don't would be if you didn't moisturize your skin at all, which actually really affects your makeup if you didn't know that, because then your skin will be really just dehydrated underneath it and just lacking moisture. Especially if you have dry skin, your makeup will really cling to the dry patches on the skin, and if you have oily skin, your makeup tends to break apart because your skin will produce a lot of oil because you didn't moisturize it, if that makes sense. Okay, so first do moisturize, go through your whole skincare regimen, and the don't is not to do any of that. Now the next thing is going to be priming the skin. I'm going for a special event. I make sure I prime my skin no matter what, just because it definitely extends the wear of my makeup. And for primers today, I have oily / combination skin, so I'm going to be using these two primers. Now I like to focus my primer especially around the nose area, because I know that that's the area where I get the most oily. Like I said, it depends on your skin type. If you have dry skin, use a hydrating primer or like a moisturizing primer. For example, the Too Faced Hangover Primer is really good for dry skin. So the next thing I like to do is my foundation. So for foundation, you guys, you want to make sure you get a foundation that's the same undertone as your skin tone. I mean, there are a lot of videos on YouTube that really go into detail about your undertones and how to figure out your undertone and find the right foundations. I actually have a video on foundations that I can link below, so you guys can check that out. But basically, there's cool tones, there's a cool undertone, there's a warm undertone, and there's a neutral undertone. I have a cool undertone. Cool is like a golden / yellow olive undertone. One will be more like a red / pink undertone, and a neutral would just be kind of like in between. They're not too warm or too cool, they're just kind of like in the middle. So I'm going to go with a foundation that matches that cool undertone, and what I have is the Too Faced Born This Way foundation. I have two shades that I usually go for. Chestnut is really good for summertime, and maple works for my winter color. So I'm going to go in with maple and a little bit of chestnut. And sometimes it happens like that where you have to mix your foundations. It's nothing scary or anything like that. Just make sure you get the right proportions to still match your undertone. Okay, and I'm going to just be applying this on my do side, and I'm going to just use a brush to apply this. Now with foundation, when you use a nice densely packed bristle brush like this to buff in the foundation, that really helps with the application. It comes out more smooth compared to if you use, like, you know, those foundation brushes that are they're typical in a makeup brush set. So like these guys, if you use this, your foundation can come off very streaky. A do is for you to also take it down your neck as well. Alright guys, I actually forgot a step. I know, crazy, right? I'm the one giving you guys the tutorial, but I'm forgetting steps. But yeah, see, I usually always skip this step just because, like, it just, I don't know, it's just such a minute thing, but it makes a huge difference. And it's color correcting. I have a video on like more detailed application on how to color correct, so do check that out. But basically, color correcting just really helps to neutralize any dark areas of the skin. For example, I usually have like really dark, like a little shadow around my mouth, like it looks like a little beard, and sometimes under my eyes, if I don't get enough sleep, it can look a little dark under there, as well as like little dark spots on my face. So color correcting with an orange concealer actually really helps to counteract this. And I'm using one from this Sephora and Pantone Universe palette, and I'm just going to place this over the foundation. I already applied the foundation, but I'll place it over. So another mistake that people make sometimes is to apply too much foundation. So I always recommend that you apply foundation only where you need it, and that's what I like to do as well. So I know that usually this area around my mouth usually has a discoloration, so I apply a bit more foundation in that area, as well as say my forehead area, which has like little tiny dark marks from acne. And so I also like to apply a bit more foundation there as well. But when it's closer to the center of my face, I like to keep it at a minimum, just because I know I'm going to still apply concealer, powder, and just every, all the other steps. So I just like to keep it as minimal as possible. Alright, so now you've color corrected on this side, on the do side, and not on the don't side, and now we're going to move on to foundation on the don't side. You don't want to use a foundation that's too light or too dark for you, which goes back to my whole discussion about finding your correct undertone, because sometimes when you don't find your right undertone, you might be using one that's too orange for you, or might be using one that's like too warm or too cool for your skin tone, and it would show, especially when you're out in natural daylight. So yeah, you want to just go into Sephora or like MAC, wherever you go to buy your makeup, and have them professionally shade match you, so you can get your right shade with the right undertone. Okay, so on this side I'm going to use a foundation that's significantly lighter than my skin tone, so you guys can see the difference it makes when you have the correct foundation. So I'm also using the Too Faced Bonus Way foundation, so I stay true to the same formula. And yeah, so this is in the shade Caramel. So do you see how much lighter that is on my skin? See, it's completely off, like comparing this side to this side. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the next step in our makeup. So for highlights, you want to find a concealer that's a few shades lighter than your skin tone. So here I have the shade Mocha. This is from Too Faced as well. It's the Born This Way concealer, and I'm going to use this to highlight my face. And as you guys can see, like, it's just a couple shades lighter than the foundation. Like, you can't even really, like, it's not as obvious, but at the same time you need to keep in mind that you're still going to use a lighter powder to set this concealer, so you don't want it to be too light, because then the powder is going to make it even lighter, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to do this side first and just apply the concealer. Concealer as well, you don't want to apply too much because it can actually get really cakey and super heavy. And now for the don't side, we're going to use a concealer that's significantly lighter than our skin tone, and for that I'm going in with the Golden Beige concealer. And I feel bad because my highlights and contouring video, like the one that a lot of people have watched, actually is a concealer that was way lighter than my skin tone, and I mean I was able to blend it out and finesse the concealer, but at the same time, just because it was a beginner friendly video, like a video for beginners, I shouldn't have used a concealer that was that light. But yeah, and another thing with using a concealer that's too light is, like, it can make you look so tired. People don't realize this, but then it makes you look very, very tired. And here's another thing with when you put on too much concealer, it's difficult for you to blend it out, okay? And you don't want to be out here looking crazy. So yeah, guys. Okay, so now I'm going to be using a nice, clean, damp beauty blender to blend out this side, and then I'm going to be using a dry, dirty beauty blender to blend out the don't side. Okay, so you want to make sure your beauty blender is damp so that you can really blend out the product a lot better. And also, if you apply too much, the beauty blender actually absorbs some of the product, so it's not super heavy on the skin. Okay, so you can even see the size difference, so that's how you know when you're doing it the right way, because it should get not significantly bigger, but a little bit bigger than what the actual size is like. Okay, so that's how you know it's damp enough and it's ready to go. So I'm just going to blend this out, like I said. And you want to just blend this out in patting motions with the beauty blender, okay? So do you see how easy that was to blend out? And the way it just blends into the foundation as well. Like, it doesn't, there's no line of demarcation of where the concealer starts or where it stops, like everything just kind of goes smoothly. That's what you want your concealer to look like. So now for this, you're going to blend this out. And I've seen a lot of people doing this where they swipe their beauty blender, and I'm just like, that just completely takes off all the product you just applied. Like, what's the point of applying the product if you're just going to basically rub it off? Do you just see how like it looks so crazy? But yeah, so do you see the difference between this side and this side and this side? And the thing about using a concealer that's too light for you and applying too much concealer is that when you start to blend out that concealer that's excessive, it basically takes over your whole face. So like as you can see, like now my whole face just looks significantly lighter compared to here, where you can still kind of see the foundation, and like yeah, it just takes over your whole face and makes your whole face lighter as a whole. That's why sometimes when you see like, you know, some people do their makeup, like their whole face just looks so much lighter when they put on the concealer, because the concealer is too light and they put on too much. So be mindful of that, you guys. Now we're going to go in with contour, and for the contour as well, I'm going to show you guys the do and the don't. The do is to use a contour shade that's like about, I'll say like 2, maximum like 3 to 4 shades darker. I wouldn't go any darker than that, just because then it will start to look a little muddy. So I'm going in with the shade Toffee from Too Faced Born This Way concealer, and I'm just going to apply this just starting from the top of my ear right here, going downwards. Okay, so I'm gonna start from the top of my ear and go towards my mouth area, and I'm gonna stop right there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing and apply just a little bit on my hairline and a little bit on the sides of my nose as well. On the don't side, I'm going to go in with the shade Mocha. Now this is the darkest shade that comes in the Too Faced Born This Way line, and I'm going to use that to contour, and I'm going to apply just a little bit too much. Another tip is that when you like see how I applied my concealer here, I'm feeling like I'm going to apply a little bit more just to make it just add a bit more coverage. And the best way to do this is you want to apply a little bit first, blend it out, and then apply more after you've applied that first round, instead of just going with a lot at first. Okay, so I'm blended. It just gives me a nice natural bronzy look. Okay, now I'm going to go back in with my dry beauty blender and try and blend this other side out. As you can see, because the beauty blender is dry, like the product is hardly even moving, and it's just leaving a lot of like streaks and very, very harsh lines. So do you see what I mean by when you apply too much product, then it starts to spread everywhere once you start to blend it out? Yeah, this is what is happening right now. Alright you guys, so now we're going to set our face, okay? So for the don't side, I'm going to use a setting powder that's significantly lighter than my skin tone. Looks almost like it's white, basically. And yeah, that's what we're going to use to set the side. And I'm going to bake and use a lot of powder. So I'm using the Benai Cameo powder to set underneath my eye. Still using my dry, dirty beauty blender. And if you notice, I didn't blend out any of the creasing before I apply this powder. I just pack it on. Just pack it on right there. For the do side, okay, I'm going to use my sponge to also blend out any creasing, and I'm going to be going in with the Benai banana powder. So it's not as light as the Cameo powder, as you guys can see. Like this one has more of a yellow undertone to it, and like I told you guys, I have a cool golden yellow undertone. So another really good powder that you can use, say if you're darker than me, you can use the Sacha Buttercup powder. That one is really good. And there's also a Sacha Buttercup light powder that's almost the same shade as Benai, but not like a little different, but they're pretty close. And then if you don't have a yellow undertone and you're darker than me, Benai also has other powders. For example, there's the chestnut powder that has more of like a warm red undertone. There's also ebony, so you guys should check those out. Like the banana powders are not the only powders that are on the market. A little bit of this powder, put it on the back of my hand, like this much. And like I said, I'm going to go and blend the creasing underneath my eyes, because I know I have fine lines under my eyes, so I have to blend them out before I apply any powder to set. Okay, so then I'm going to dip my sponge into the powder and just apply it directly. And what I'm doing is I'm just pushing it into the skin. So now I'm not saying like baking is a bad thing. You can bake. I just don't think it's necessary to use a lot of powder, because when you dust off that baking powder, you are going to have like a very white cast on your face, and sometimes you can even get flashback depending on the powder that you use. Okay, so we want to avoid all of that and get seamless makeup. Alright, so do you see the difference? Like, it still gives you a nice brighten effect, but it's not too crazy. Okay, and I'll show you guys how I bake as well, so you guys can see that. So I'm just going to set all of the highlighted areas. So if I wanted to bake, I'll take a little more powder and just pack this on, placing it close to the close to my nose area, under the eyes. So as you can see, there's the excess powder there, but it's nothing too crazy, okay? And then also for the cheekbone area, this is called reverse contouring, by the way. You just want to do a little bit because you don't want that line of demarcation there that it's so obvious that, okay, yes, I contoured, you know. So now we're baking, we're setting, getting ready to go. Okay, so now for contouring, to set the contour, I see this mistake being made a lot where people just use like really dark contour powders. It's the same thing I said in terms of where they use really light powders because they want to have a brightened effect, and then they use a really dark powder because they want to have like a really defined sunken cheekbone. They're using like a super dark powder that's way darker than your skin tone, which is so not necessary. So we're going to do the don't side first. Now for the don't side, I'm going to be taking this Ruby Kisses powder. It's in the shade Ebony, and as you guys can see, this is significantly darker than my skin tone, and like it's just something I would normally not use, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you guys the results of using something like this. And I see a lot of people just, when they apply their contour powder, they just go in like a back and forth motion like that to blend it out, and I'm just like, no, like, stop it. And then you also, of course, don't want to apply too much. Like I said, you guys, like, do everything in moderation. Don't apply too much of anything. So this is what this would look like. Going back and forth to just apply the powder that's way too dark for my skin tone. Okay? Like, what is that? Apply a little bit on the jawline. And then on the temples as well. Now for the do side, I like to use a nice fluffy brush that will just really diffuse the product, okay? So I'm using the same Ruby Kisses powder, but this is in honey brown. So as you can see, this one it's not too dark for me, and it just gives me a nice warm bronzy tone. So I'm just going to swirl this around just to get the product on my brush. As you can see, I love this product because I've hit pan already. Tap off the excess, and what you want to do is apply your bronzer in like circular motions, and that really helps you blend it out, okay? Like so. So as you can see, like, it's giving me a nice bronzy look, but like it's nothing crazy like this. This is hard to blend out. Like, you're going to be walking around the streets with this harsh line, you know, and we don't want that. So you just want to apply it in nice circular motions like so. You can even do a little ducky face if you want. So you see how that just gives like a nice diffused product. Like, you can't even really tell where anything starts or stops. That's your key. Like, that's your goal when you're doing your makeup. You don't want to be able to tell where anything starts and stops, especially when it comes to your face makeup. Okay, now to dust off the baking powder, I'm just going to be using a little fluffy brush like this, and I'm just going to dust that off. Another key thing is you don't want to leave your baking powder on for too long as well, because that can also cause flashback. So as you can see, even after I've dusted everything off, like, I still have that white cast on my face because the powder is way too light and I applied too much. Alright, you guys, so now we're going to move on to highlight and blush. Now for highlights, the don't is using a highlighter that's too light for your skin tone. You guys, I see this all over Instagram, and like, it stresses me out. It's like, a girl will have beautiful makeup, and then she will just put on this super light ashy highlighter, and I'm just like, why? And then everything is just looking like a huge beam of light on her face. It's crazy, and I don't understand the logic behind it, but to each their own, right? So for the don't side, I'm going to be going in with the lightest highlighting color in this palette, and I'm going to be using, oops, I used the wrong brush, and I'm just going to be using a brush to apply this. I'm just going to be packing this on, just going back and forth on my cheekbones, like so. Now we want to be highlighted to the gods, okay? So we're going to just make sure this is super obvious. We're going to apply like 100 layers of highlighter. For the do side, use a highlighter that isn't too light for your skin tone, but also has a nice undertone that matches your undertone. So for example, this one right here is really, really nice. I don't know if you guys can see that, but so this one right here, I really like this one because it has a nice golden undertone, and when I put it on, it's not too crazy. Like, it doesn't look crazy on my skin. It just gives me a very nice natural glow, as you guys can see. Obviously, I also love my highlighter to pop, and I like to be highlighted for the gods, so I apply a little bit more, and as you can see, like, it just pops compared to this one. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you guys, like. And then another thing people forget to do is to blend out their highlight. Like, you're blending out everything. Make sure you blend out your highlights as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in with the brush I used to dust off my powder, and I'm just going to go over the highlighter. Okay, blush. Actually, I wouldn't say like any particular color of blush is, you know, better for a particular skin tone or anything like that. Like, it's whatever you want to do, all depends on the look that you're going for, right? Thing I would recommend is just not to apply too much where you go overboard and like it looks crazy. It's like when I look at your face, all I can see is blush. Then that's like a bit you know. So I'm going to go in with this blush. I'm actually going to be mixing these two colors right here, and this is from Juvia's Place. It's the Saharan blush in volume 2. So I'm just going to be starting from this outer corner right here, and I'm going to work my way forward to the apples of the cheeks, like so, and then blend it out. I used to be someone that didn't like a lot of blush, to be honest, and then I started playing with it a little bit more, and I started to learn, and I noticed that like it really just depends on how you apply it and what shade you're using, right? There's some colors that don't show up really nice on your skin tone, and there's some that just really make your skin tone pop. And this Juvia's palette, like the color combinations are really, really good. I really like them. Yeah. So that's how I apply my blush, and as you can see, I'm blending it in with the highlight, so that way it's not like super obvious or anything like that. Okay, for the don't side, I'm going to apply the blush. Of course, I'm going to be going in, see how I use like a light pink here. I'm going to be using a dark pink and a dark, not dark orange, but like a true orange color, and I'm going to go very, very heavy handed with this. Okay, so you guys can see the result of that. And just go back and forth instead of blending it like in circular motions. I'll just go back and forth. Okay, so I'm packing on this color. It's called Zane, and just packing that on. Not blending it out at all, just putting it on my face. Okay, so now to finish the whole base off, for the do side, I'm going to spray some setting spray. For the don't side, I don't spray any setting spray. And depending on your skin type, you want to know what kind of setting spray you're going to go for, because there's different types of setting sprays, right? So there's some that are made for more oilier skin types that give a matte finish, and there's some that are more dewy. I'll show you guys some examples that I have. So for example, this is one by Absolute New York, and it's a mattifying setting spray. NYX also has one, Urban Decay has one, To Control Oil. So many different brands sell mattifying setting sprays. And there's also dewy setting sprays. For example, there's this one from e.l.f. It's called the Dewy Setting Mist. Actually does a good job, and this one is like a coconut flavor to it, so it's nice. And then there's also Fix Plus by MAC that also gives you a nice healthy glow. There's also one by Tatcha as well, so this is for more dry skin types. Okay, so like I told you guys from the start, I have oily combination skin, so I'm going to go in with the MAC setting spray, and I'll just spray my do side from afar. Alright you guys, so you can immediately see the difference between this side and this side. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope no one takes it personal. Say if anything I put in the don't side is something you do and I consider it a don't take it personal. It's just definitely my opinion and my point of view of things. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Again, like I said, you guys can clearly see the difference. This side of my face, even just from like the base, the foundation, it matches and it blends to my neck and my chest, compared to this side, which is more like, it looks a bit more like ghostly and definitely a lot lighter. And I know if I take a picture there's going to be crazy flashback and the excess blush and just everything. So yeah, you guys can definitely see the difference between that. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful, and I shall see you guys in my next one. The next one is going to be eyeshadow do's and don'ts. Okay, so stay tuned for that, and yeah, I'll see you guys. Bye.